My name is John Max. We have, is this everyone's first time here? People who've been here before? Great.
I'm a virgin.
There you go. That's one of the few in the audience.
Most unlikely candidate.
There you go. You're very lucky this year because so much of what's in the news has been fitting for our panels, and obviously the panel you're here for has been in the news a bit lately thanks to the president. When I got out of law school, my first job was with the ACLU. It's an amazing organization, and you're very lucky because the moderator for this panel is someone who I truly admire. She's the director of the LGBTQ Gender Reproductive Justice Project at the ACLU of Southern California. Please welcome Melissa Goodman.
Yelling behind us. How's everybody doing?
Good.
All right. See, we're gonna shout. Yeah, it's for us. So, hello. And thank you for the kind introduction. So this was a big week, and really, frankly, not in a good way for LGBTQ equality. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna say a few words to set the stage for our conversation, and then I will very briefly introduce our lovely panelists. And then we'll get going. But I just wanted to set the stage a little bit. So it goes without saying that the 2016 election had extremely big implications and consequences for LGBTQ equality. And the candidates, as you likely know, had very different platforms on a range of relevant issues. And as you probably noticed, the candidate with the pro-equality platform did not win. And that is where we are now. And since Trump assumed the presidency, we've primarily seen, really enormous steps backwards for our movement. Namely, the recent extremely shocking and hasty attempt to, ban transgender people from the military through tweets. New Department of Justice legal positions that our education non-discrimination law doesn't protect trans students, that our workplace non-discrimination laws do not protect gay and lesbian employees. Judicial appointments of people with a really deep history of anti-LGBTQ rulings, political appointments of a huge number of extremely openly anti-LGBTQ people, and things like dropping LGBTQ data collection from the census, smaller things that might fall under the radar but can have enormous consequences. But we've also seen, interestingly, some moments of restraint and something, possibly approaching hope. Like when everyone expected that the Trump administration was going to issue a very broad executive order expanding the federal government, government employees, government contractors, ability to invoke religious beliefs in order to discriminate against LGBTQ people. That did not come when a religious liberty order was issued. Who knows what will happen or what's in the works now, but it didn't come. And we also recently saw that some semblance of hope when 24 House Republicans recently rejected an amendment to stop funding transition-related care for military service members and their dependents. So nonetheless, I would say that the anti-LGBTQ movement's main goal since losing the marriage battle, mainly to exploit transphobia and to push for very broad religious exemptions to non-discrimination law, those goals are alive and they're well and they're being carried out by the White House in many state legislatures and in our federal agencies as well. And there's lots of other issues that our community faces, and I just want to kind of name them as we start, and then we'll talk about the panelists. We see a continued, really disproportionately high level of violence and hate crimes, particularly against trans women of color. We have disproportionately high profiling and criminal justice enforcement against LGBTQ and gender nonconforming people. We have the massive changes that are happening in immigration enforcement and detention and asylum and refugee practices are having an impact on our community. And the threat of healthcare, obviously, some things have developed in healthcare this week, but all that stuff and funding cuts obviously impacts LGBTQ people and HIV positive people in a particular way. So these are some of the things I expect we'll talk about today. And I'm just gonna go ahead and introduce some of the panelists in the order that they are seated, which is roughly, strangely, almost alphabetical. So yay. So next to me, hello, we have, you're next to me, being here tonight. We have the lovely Clay Aiken, who, as you might have as you likely already know, Clay is a very successful and extremely talented singer, but he is also, I think it's true, so I named it. He's also an actor, an author. He started a charitable foundation called the National Inclusion Project for Children with Disabilities, and he ran for Congress in 2014. Next, we have Guy Benson. Hello, Guy. Guy is the political editor of townhall.com, a Fox News contributor, and co-author of a book called End of Discussion, which was published by Random House, and a new edition is coming out on Tuesday. And he's also made many a top 30 under 30 list. Maybe not this year.
Not anymore.
I'm 32. It's over. It's all over.
Done. All right. Okay. Then we have Alex Mohajer, who is a political writer and commentator for HuffPost, among other places, and also the co-founder and editor-in-chief of Bros for America, which started as started as Bros for Hillary, and that too. All right, we're getting a read on the room, apparently. All right. I would be extremely remiss if I failed also to mention that Alex was named as Out Magazine's 100 Most Eligible Bachelors in 2017, and I hear he's interested in dates. So, outside of the
I
panel,
got 0 dates on the
I mean, that's unbelievable, people. You have to rectify that. Okay, so moving on. Okay, we have also Matthew Craffey with us, and he is. Matthew is the chairman of the Log Cabin Republicans of California, and he is also the president of Log Cabin Republicans of Los Angeles. He's also a musician, a car enthusiast, and he ran for state assembly in 2016.
Right.
I'm looking for dates too. So.
Awesome.
I think there's a solution sitting right next to me.
That will make for an interesting dynamic on the panel later. So, all right. Finally, last but certainly not least, is Tara Slavin, who's the Deputy Director of Policy and Community Building Department at the LA LGBT Center. A wonderful colleague of mine who I work with a lot and appreciate. For folks who don't know, the LA LGBT Center is actually the largest LGBT organization in the world. And Tara is a lawyer and has a tremendous history of amazing things, but specifically serving LGBT survivors of domestic and sexual violence. And you don't have to declare your desire for dates or not.